Hey guys, so today's video is going to be about informational text. The purpose of this is to give you a bit of an introduction, so really an introduction to informational text. And I want to kind of just go over some of the things that we're going to be looking at for this unit and what we're going to be kind of exploring in terms of the different types of informational text. I know we've been doing a lot of different types of text. We've done short stories, we might have done some longer stories, some poems. I'm trying to give you guys a nice variety of different material. We've been working on things like your analytical skills. We've been working on things like your writing skills, depending on which class you're in and you know, what we've been doing throughout the year. But typically, you know, these are the things that I've been focusing on, writing skills, especially in the idea of having strong foundations, which is really important. It will serve you later in life if you ever choose to, you know, learn a language. And I mean any language. It doesn't have to be one of the official languages in Canada, but you know, one day when you're 30 and you decide that Swedish is a really cool language and you want to learn it, or something along those lines, having a strong foundation in English is actually going to help you quite a bit in terms of knowing things like subjects and verbs and predicates and what is a complete sentence, because a lot of this will translate over to different languages. Obviously not all languages. Some languages are very, very different from English, such as, you know, Chinese or Arabic can be quite a bit different and quite a bit of a jump. So if you're coming from one of those languages, you know, it's even harder to have stronger foundations in English. But if we're switching to maybe some of the languages that are a little bit easier, like the Romantic languages, French, Spanish, Italian, you know, in general, really, I know I'm rambling, having a strong foundation in English and knowing your grammar will really help you later on. And so, you know, I've been trying to get you guys to be critical of what you're looking at and what you're reading, what you're seeing around you. I know in some classes I've focused on the idea of news and looking at news and understanding how that might be something that you need to be critical about. To varying degrees, depending on, you know, what class you're in and how long we've had together and all that jazz. But today, actually, I was speaking to some of my friends and they said, you know, knowing how to write basically informational text is something that will help serve you later on in life. Because I said, you know, what is something that you really wish that you had focused more time in English on? And informational text was sort of one that popped up in various forms, right? Things that you're going to have to write while you're in the workplace. So, you know, we're going to kind of take it from very specific situations that were discussed and talked about, and we're going to bring it back to this idea of informational text so that we can have a nice strong foundation in informational text. And then, you know, as the year progresses, depending on how much time we have, and, you know, whether you're doing this online as part of this year or whether I use this video later on, and we're doing this as a kind of hybrid class, or, you know, whether this is in class. I want this to kind of be a video that can be used again and again in terms of gaining some skills that are useful for your future, really. Okay, enough rambling. Let's get into informational text and what this even means. So, very, very briefly, an informational text is a subset or type. Subset means that it's part of a larger set of nonfiction. Its primary purpose is to tell you as the reader about the world. So when we're looking at writing, or just types of writing, whether you're reading it or actually writing it, we have two kinds of writing. We have fiction and we have nonfiction, because English people are very inventive in the way that we title things. it's either the stuff that's fun to read, or it's the other stuff. Is how we break it up. So fiction are going to be your stories. They're not going to be real. They're going to be, you know, the story of the hero that goes on the quest in search of the magical sword that will help him to become a better balloon animal maker, whatever it is, right? So these are all going to be the stories. Think of most things, like most movies that you watch, especially as a kid, you know, like Disney movies, most Disney movies, you know, all of those, like, Shrek is one. Is there a C in Shrek? What's another good one? Cinderella is another one. So like all of those stories that, aren't real. Okay, they might be rooted in real ideas or taken from real situations as inspiration, but they are not real. Nonfiction, on the other hand, is the second subset that we are talking about, or broken down in that kind of subcategory or type. And nonfiction is going to be, one of them would be informational, which is what we're going to focus on right now. And informational will tell you about something. So it might tell you about, how to forage for plants. It might tell you how to fish. It might tell you the different types of clouds in the sky. It'll tell you about something in the world. If you're sitting there wondering what is the life cycle of a frog, you're going to be reading something informational. So it's going to be kind of all that nonfiction stuff. We also have some other stuff, like news articles are going to be nonfiction. What would be another one? Any of those like true crime shows that are really popular right now on Netflix, documentaries. I apologize if there's any spelling errors in there. I when I speak and I write at the same time, it can be very difficult for me, which is sometimes why I pause and think for a second. But let's just kind of move past that. So, nonfiction can encompass a lot of different things that you might see. In day-to-day, you look at the side of your cereal box in the morning, you pull out your box of Just Right is the one I'm eating right now. Lovely cereal, it's one of my favorites. So you pull out your box of Just Right, and on this side, it will tell you the nutritional information. Right? That would be a sort of nonfiction writing. So there are plenty of reasons why you might read nonfiction, and depending on where your life takes you, nonfiction may end up being the bulk of what you're reading and what you're looking at. A lot of people also love reading nonfiction to read things like biographies, or you might be reading nonfiction because your job requires it. So let's kind of really delve into, this informational text, which is a subset of this nonfiction. Okay, so I have an example of a bunch of different reading materials that are informational text. So I have some pictures here. Now, ideally in a classroom setting, I would give you, a bunch of different examples of these nonfiction informational texts. But pause the video right here and see if you can find something kind of similar or akin to what you see in the picture in front of you. So an encyclopedia or a magazine of some kind. Be careful because there are some fiction magazines. Most magazines that I've seen are nonfiction, but there are some fiction. So, just kind of ask yourself, is it like this, like the Entrepreneur, or is it, a magazine about, I don't know, what's the big ones? Vogue. So go ahead and grab a magazine. You can also grab a textbook. Again, be careful, don't grab your English textbook because it's probably going to be a lot of fiction in there. But, grab a science textbook, or grab a math textbook works as well. I don't know why I put quotes around there. You could grab a law textbook. So, grab any of those kind of textbooks. I'm just writing TB for textbook. Grab one of those. If you don't have any of those, grab the newspaper. Or you can grab a nonfiction book if you have any kind of lying around the house. But pause the video right now and grab one of these types of informational text, something that is going to teach or tell you about something. You can also go online and look up, if you don't have anything around you that's printed, look up a newspaper. So you might want to look up the New York Times, or look up the Toronto Star, or look up the Telegraph Journal. So hopefully now you've grabbed one, you have it in front of you, because I'm going to ask you to go through it, and you're okay to hit play, and you're okay to kind of continue on. Okay, so we're going to flip to the next question, and I'm going to come back and kind of take a look at some of these with you. Okay, so I want you to take a look at the item in front of you, because you should have something in front of you, and I want you to tell me, what are the characteristics of this item first? So, kind of to help you out here, because I am on a screen, let's take a look at a newspaper. So this is not what we want. This is soup. Sorry, I should have had this ready. Toronto Star. Sure, why not? Okay. Now, I prefer that you would have an actual book in front of you, but if not, let's kind of take a peek at this guy. And I'm going to actually take a photo of a couple of things here that I just want to note. So we're going to copy this, and I'm going to just throw it over here. Right? So take a look at what you have in front of you. We're going to look at the characteristics. Here we go. Sorry. You think I would get used to technology, eh? Paste. Okay, beautiful. So there's a picture of the Toronto Star, the front page from today. I'm going to make that bigger so that we can all see it. So I haven't even really gotten into the writing of it yet, but I can already start to see some characteristics. So what do I mean when I say characteristics? When I say characteristics, what I really mean is what defines, this type of writing, or, what the layout is. What are some things that we might have in common? So some things that I notice right away, and I know that I'll see this in the newspaper as well, every once in a while when I read it, we'll have kind of like a little table of contents, right? And now I know fiction will also have this. They might tell you what chapters are on which page, but the story is typically given out in a sequential format of some sort. You might start right here with, little Lucy who goes for a walk. And then, Lucy might find a penny. The penny opens up a new world. And then Lucy has to fight the bad guy. And then Lucy wins. Okay, so loosely based, this is a story, right? Now we might have a little bit of a flash around, like the story might move around a little bit. We might have, a sneak peek of what's going on, but generally this is sort of how the story goes, right? If I were to pick it up and start reading it here, and then, as the first part, and then move over here as the second part of my reading, and then come over here to the third, and then, the fourth, and then we end at the fifth, the story won't make much sense to me. It has to be read in a sequence, whereas this informational text right here, I could read this in any order. I could start with the local news. I can move on to sports. I could read entertainment. Maybe I want to look at the world. But you know what? I'm not really interested in Canadian news today or politics. Don't really care about opinion, life, business, or podcasts. That's fine. I'm not missing out on the overall what this is trying to tell me about, right? I can skip different parts if I want and still learn something from it. Whereas if I skip, if I were to skip this part of the story overall, right? If you were to be reading a story and decide that you don't want to read chapters 5 and 6, you come the next day to class and we're talking about chapter 7, and you really don't know who this new character is, it's because you skipped those 5 and 6 chapters. Whereas here, I can read it in any order. I could read it, I could skip parts of it, right? It doesn't really make a difference to my overall reading. So there's one thing about it, right? So we have it organized in a way that doesn't have to do with sequence necessarily. It's organized in another way. Now, it can be organized in sequence. If you open up the IKEA directions on how to put together a table, that's going to be organized in a sequence, but, you know, it's not always organized in a sequence like a story would be. Okay, some other characteristics of what I'm seeing here. So let's go back to the Toronto Star. Okay, so some things I'm seeing right now, we have a really big photo. We have some numbers that I'm seeing. We have another photo, some more photos. Okay, so we have a lot of photos going on. So let me, oh, I can't make that smaller. Okay, I'm going to try to take that as my little snapshot because I want to point out some things to you as I'm noticing while I'm looking through this. Now keep in mind that yours might look very different, or it should look different, depending on the date that you've chosen to look at this or what type of material you're looking at. I'm only looking at one example because, you know, we're limited right now to what I can grab on my iPad. So I noticed right here we have photos. And we have quite a few of them, right? Which is different than a fiction text for, not all fiction texts, but for a lot of fiction texts for our age group don't have as many photos in them. We might have one or two, unless it's a graphic novel. But there are more pictures in our nonfiction text that I'm noticing than I would in our fiction texts. I'm also seeing statistics or numbers. Okay, so I'm seeing numbers. I'm seeing, you know, some sort of chart, right? The numbers are not just she was 42 years old, because we can have numbers like this in our fiction stories, right? But they're not quite the same. So I'm seeing a different kind of set of numbers. We're seeing it in a chart. Sometimes, especially in news, you might see things in graphs. This is more noticeable when we look at stocks and in the business section. Sometimes you'll actually see, you know, like a little graph about how much money the stock is making or not. Okay, so we could see kind of graphs like this. We can see sort of like little charts like this. So I'm seeing kind of some different parts of this nonfiction text. So far... Sorry, let me scroll up. There we go. Some characteristics that I'm seeing, right? I'm seeing a table of contents. I am seeing pictures. I am seeing graphs. Okay, if you're reading a book, there might be some other different things that you're seeing. So kind of, you know, pause the video here and see kind of what in front of you. Does your informational text have the same style that I do? Do you have something different? So take a look at kind of the things that you notice that are different than would be if we were to look at a story. Okay, so when we're looking at number 2, how would you define its writing style? What do the different texts have in common? We're not going to do number 3 because I'm not going to look at too many. This will be too long of a video. But the writing style. So let's go grab an article here. Is there anything happy in the news? Probably. Okay, some strange news. Right. Okay, there are some sad and strange things. Let's do a cherry cheesecake. Why not? Because I like cheesecake. I don't know about you. Let's take a look at a cherry cheesecake. Hopefully, yeah, perfect. Okay. So, If we're looking at the beginning, okay, this is, again, just a small snapshot of the writing, because it would be a very long video if I did all of the writing. You'd think I would have this all beforehand, but apparently I don't. It's been a while since I've taught this lesson. And like I said, I usually teach it in class, so, being online is a bit of a different challenge, so, I appreciate your patience. Okay, so if we take a look at these nice 3 paragraphs right here, I will highlight as I read along. We're going to read the 3 paragraphs and talk about, what the writing style looks like. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Is that better? Perfect. Since the beginning of the pandemic, Premier Doug Ford has been sharing personal and folksy anecdotes during his daily press conferences. But last Monday, he dropped a cherry bomb. As he discussed having his daughters over for Mother's Day, he did a political pivot away from discussing a possible breach of quarantine and went on a tangent about his daughters' baking and hiccups in the food supply chain. They're big into baking, said Ford, explaining that one daughter, Kayla Ford, has been running her own online cookie company. Okay, so short, has to do a little bit with the times that we're in while this is being filmed. But some things that I'm noticing. Okay, so if I'm looking at the paragraphs themselves, this is a news article. They're short paragraphs. When I ask you to do your paragraph writing for me, typically I ask for about 5 to 7 sentences, or 5 to 10, really, right? No more than 10. Some people I know really like to have that extra room to write, but, I ask for a little bit longer. I usually ask for a minimum of 5 sentences. This is not. So I'm already noticing something different about this informational piece. So we have 1 sentence here. And how many do we have over here in this paragraph? We have 1 sentence. And on our last paragraph, we have 1 sentence. So we have 3 paragraphs and 3 sentences. Okay, so already I'm noticing a bit of a shorter piece when I'm looking at informational. We have been doing longer ones in persuasive, but informational so far seems to have shorter paragraphs, so let's make note of that. Take a look at your, piece in front of you. Do you have shorter paragraphs as well? Are they longer? If you're looking at IKEA directions, do they even have words in them? It's kind of it's an informational piece, but does it have a word in it, right? Typically not, because IKEA wants to make it so that it is informative, but also can go across many countries. So, our writing is very short and to the point. We're not wasting a lot of words. Oh, not points. To the point. Okay, another thing that I notice here is this quote. Oh, sorry. Springtime when I'm filming this, and I have springtime allergies, so it's been fun. Okay, so the quote here, usually when we see quotation marks like this, we know that it's a sort of dialogue that moves forward the plot. In this, it's not dialogue at all. We call this a quote, and it's showing what, the person has said, not in a conversation. We're not showing a conversation. That means not. Showing conversation. We're showing it as a word for word, kind of what's going on. So we have short quotes. Okay, so a couple things different that we're noticing with informational writing off the bat, right? It's not the same as a book, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But, it's a great way of, sharing information. And let's take a look at the different types, because there's more than one type of informational. You might have had different results than I did. And if you haven't done it, pause the video right now and see if you can answer these 2 questions. But you might have a different style than I do. and I'll let you know why. So, we kind of already went through this idea. What are the different main elements of an informational text? Okay, so some things that we talked about, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Features of informational texts. So print features might have things like a bolded print, right, to give you definitions. It might have colored print. It might have bullets like this. This is an informational piece right here. It'll have a title. It'll have a heading. It might have a subheading, right? There'll be labels, captions, italics. So there's going to be a lot of features in the print itself that's going to, give you information to help you locate things quickly. The next thing might be graphic aids. So this could be diagrams, sketches, graphs, figures, charts, right? We saw a chart already. It was a small chart, but we saw a chart. Tables, a map maybe, cross sections, timelines, overlays. So we might see all of that kind of really good stuff. And as we go through, I'll give you kind of examples of informational texts where you might see some of these different aids being used. We have organizational aids, table of contents, an index, right? If you go to the back, you'll see an index, glossary, a preface, pronunciation guide, especially depending on, what it is that you are looking at, and whether the pronunciation is going to be something that the author wants to help you out with, or an appendix, something at the back to give you more information. So there's a whole bunch of different types of informational texts. Illustrations. We might have colored photographs, drawings, black and white photos, black and white drawings, label drawings, enlarged photographs, watercolor, oil paintings. So there's lots of ways that they could show you kind of pictures to help you out. So these are the four main, features of informational texts, or four main categories of the features of informational texts, right? We have all of these different things that informational texts have that fiction texts don't necessarily always have. They're more prominent in an informational text. Okay, continuing on. Now, there are, I think it was five different types of informational text that we are going to look at throughout these next few weeks. So the first thing that we're going to look at is this one right here. So it's a description text, so it tells me about something. The symbol right here I've given is that I've taken, is this circle, right? There are different layers to it, sort of like that peeling of an onion exercise if you've done that with me for poetic writing. We're kind of peeling back the layers. We have, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What does it taste like? We're going through all of those different elements of those characteristics. So some signal words, and a signal word just tells me that, the word, if this word is in the paragraph, then it's most likely this type of writing. So a signal word can be characteristics are, it is like, one example, also, another, to illustrate, to begin with, on top of, in addition to. And all of these signal words are going to tell me that the writing is about a description piece. So, let's take a look at, and let me, write a description piece for you. So let me get my signal words out there in the corner. Let me get my pen, make it a little bit smaller so I can have room to write. So I'm going to describe, what should I describe? I am going to describe my mug. So I'm going to try to paint a picture for you of what my mug looks like. So I would say my favorite coffee mug is is white, ceramic, and has, you've got this, written across both sides. Okay, so I started writing this out, my favorite coffee mug. So let me kind of just change this around to keep some of those signal words in there, right? When I write, I always make sure that I'm going back and I'm editing it. I'm always making sure that I'm trying to make this the best piece of writing that I can, which means the first time it comes out, it's not always going to be perfect. So I could say, where was it? Characteristics are. So I could say, some characteristics. Oop, I need some more room. Of my favorite coffee mug, and because characteristics is plural, I have to put are. So some characteristics of my favorite coffee mug are that it is white, ceramic, and has "you've got this" written across both sides. Okay. So I've already kind of got one of my signal words used up there. The writing style of the words is like, okay, so, sorry, there we go, is like, so the writing style of the words is like a hand lettering effect. Another detail is, what else I'm looking at it right now, is that it is a dishwasher safe mug. Okay, so another. The ceramic mug has a glaze on top of it. This helps to create its smooth texture. In addition, to its looks, the mug holds around 16 ounces of liquid. This helps me to start my day with a large cup of coffee or tea. Okay, so that was a little bit about my mug, right? And in there, in that example, I've given you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different signal words that I used while I was writing, right? I used, let me highlight them here, some characteristics. I use is like, another detail, really, which is beautiful. In addition to, helps to create, on top of, right, and lots of detail, right? When I'm using description, I'll say what it looks like. So I have quite a bit about its looks. I have white, I have ceramic, I have the actual words that are written on it. I've described the kind of words that I see. I also, talked about what it felt like. And I talked a little bit about how big it was. So in there, right, I'm not using all of my different kind of senses, but I've used some of them to help describe what it's like. So for this week, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to choose one item in your house, or it could be something outside, and describe it using a descriptive, informational paragraph. Use as many signal words as you can. Okay, from there we're going to move on and we're going to take a look at different informational texts as the rest of the year continues on. Okay, so one paragraph, I am looking for about 5 to 7 sentences, and tell me a little bit about an item that you see in your house. Okay, perfect. That is it. I will see you guys next week. If there's anything else you want for a video, let me know. Comments, Microsoft Teams, email, send me a message however you want. All right. Good luck. Have fun. I look forward to reading your entries.